Hello, fellow dreamers, and welcome to the Dreamers Life podcast. Today's conversation is entitled Giving 20%. That seems kind of intriguing.
This podcast is a presentation of Pioneer Dream, celebrating 30 years of moving stories for our corporate, nonprofit, and entertainment partners.
Hello, fellow dreamers, and welcome back to the Dreamers Live podcast. You have made it to another episode.
Hello.
Yes, and this is, as always, my co-host and co-conspirator, Ann Jeanette. I am Jay Webster. We are your hosts, and we are coming to you, as always, from the center of the known universe, the Lair, the Pioneer Dream Studio, in the heart of Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Yes,
and,
we're in a new, full disclosure.
Yes,
we're in a new bit of a studio setup situation.
You can't see it because you're only listening to us,
right?
But it's
but we're looking like sitting across from each other in more of a real podcasty type situation.
Yeah, there's sound foam on the walls now.
And like cool lighting and but the thing is,
we are both naked, which kind of makes this awkward.
Okay. Wow. We just lost so many subscribers.
Okay.
No, it's just funny that we're looking at each other. Hello,
yes.
how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm sure I'll get used to it.
Hey, speaking of naked, would you do us a favor? Would you do us a favor right now so you won't forget? And would you share this podcast with people you think might enjoy it? Maybe fellow nudists or people that
Squish.
or people you just think would find these kind of conversations interesting. We're just trying to expand this a little bit. And as you know, these are conversations about intentional living or humaning better, or however you want to phrase it. You probably have your own slant on what this amazing podcast means to you.
Yeah, it's so true. Wouldn't you say that any of my favorite books or podcasts or even really music is something that somebody else turned me on to and said, "Oh man, you would totally get this," or "Oh, you love this." Because it's like they trust you.
That's how people find their way to Dreamers Live events, because if you're just trying to explain to people, it sounds a little cultish or weird, or like somebody's going to try and sell you something or whatever. Here, come to this group.
Right.
There's probably a small speech, and you're probably going to meet people and probably have conversation.
Except we don't really sell anything, but right. Yeah.
No, but once somebody comes, they love it, and then they go in and they invite their friends.
Yeah, and that's where they come.
And that's what we're hoping you'll do with this podcast. So
Please do that.
So if you enjoy the podcast, you can probably think of somebody else that you know in your circle of friends that might also enjoy this.
You could also be slick, like if you wanted to share it with your spouse because you think it might help them. You could just be like, hey.
Quotes help them.
Yeah,
yes.
I thought this would be really fun, and you listen to it and I'll listen to it, and we'll chat about it over a glass of wine. Or you can invite a friend for a post-podcast coffee discussion.
Right. Yes, exactly.
There you go.
This is what I gleaned from the amazing inspiration that they brought at the podcast. What would you... Yeah.
It's a good excuse to get together with somebody, though, and have something cool to talk about. So.
Yeah. So take a second, go to that little link, share button, copy the link, text it to a friend right now and say, you will love this podcast, and they'll certainly enjoy it. And you can find it anywhere you find podcasts, because we're everywhere. We're ubiquitous. Is that right?
We used to say ubiquitous.
We're ubiquitous.
Just because it sounded cooler. Ubiquitous is
last time you saw your heroes, we were making a hi-fi, lo-fi list.
Yes.
Not lo-fi, but lo-fi.
Yes.
With a hard V.
I thought it was really funny because I saw one of my aunts yesterday.
Yes.
And she said, hey, I was listening to your podcast, and it's actually the first one I've ever listened to. It just showed up on my YouTube, and I was like, thank you. But no, anyway, it was funny. She goes, but you guys were talking about holidays and things you were trying to make better. And the first thing you said was, I sure hope none of my family's listening to this. And she thought that was super funny. And I was like, well, we kind of just say that so that we don't offend our moms. Yeah. God bless them. We love them so much.
Well, normally, I don't want to give away any trade secrets and stuff, but when we do talk about people on the podcast, for our sake and their sake, we usually combine a couple of relatives or family members at one time.
You think you know who we're talking about.
Then we make up something. So our go-to is Uncle Carl.
Yeah.
Neither of us have an Uncle Carl.
Right, exactly.
And Uncle Carl is kind of an amalgam of a couple of different people in our lives.
Yes.
Some we're related to, some we're not. But usually the interaction is actual. We really did have this exchange with someone. But for the sake of those people and for ourselves and for our Thanksgiving celebrations, we don't actually mention who they are.
That's right. So you think you know us, but you don't know.
You do not.
We're changing it up all the time.
So when last we met, our heroes were making a high-five, low-five list. We were, quote, unpacking the holidays. So that's the deal where you go through your most recent holiday experience. And you can really do this with anything. We just chose to make it about the holidays. So, you go through the holiday thing, and there's some experiences that you really love and some experiences that you would just rather not do again. And so
Let's just not.
And so while you're doing that, you make this list on the end of that while it's still fresh, and you say, okay, here are the things that I loved about the holidays. I wish I could get more of this. Mm-hmm. And then here are the things that if there was any way I would change about the holidays. And you make that list. And what's surprising about it is even the things that seem either A, obvious, or B, like there's no way they could change. Christmas is going to be on the 25th no matter what.
Right.
It's surprising that when you make a list of it, sometimes those things actually are adjustable.
Yeah.
Those things are approachable, and you can make a change. Yeah, and so it's worth doing the list, especially while it's fresh into you. So this conversation is a bit of an offshoot of that. So when we made are you done there with the glasses?
I'm sorry. I just need to clean my glasses. They're fuzzy. See, we can see each other. We're like looking at each other. I don't know if it's going to work.
Well, it sounded like a squeaky mouse for a second. So, so when we were making our list, and our list would be different than yours, but I bet there's probably some crossover. One of the things that made our list as a reoccurring theme was the busyness of the holidays, the things that we did that suffocated us, that wore us down, that, and part of that's the holidays. It's a busy time of the year.
Sure.
But more than that, we realized there were some things that we were doing that were probably even under the guise of doing positive things.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That were actually killing us.
Yeah.
And so you and I got to the conclusion that, look, we could do these things, all the things. We could do all the things, but in about 3 years, we're going to be burned out and we're going to do none of the things.
Right.
Or we could adjust some of this and maybe take 10 or 20 or 30% off the top of the things we do.
Right.
And we would live to fight another day, and we might be able to do meaningful things for 10 or 20 or 30 years because we wouldn't be burned out. And so that's what you and I have been doing all January.
We've been making budget cuts, budget cuts.
Yeah, so imagine you're a corporation and something happens. Maybe you get a new CFO or whatever, and they come in and they say, look, we need to cut costs, 20% cuts.
Yeah, so look
across
at everything.
The board. So every department, I need the head of every department to come back next week and tell me where you're going to cut 20% out of your department.
Yeah.
What's that going to look like? Office supplies, employees, whatever, time spent, X, Y, or Z, hours of this, that, or the other. So all those kind of things. And so you and I have approached our lives as if we were looking for 20% to cut in every area of our lives in terms of emotional and physical and spiritual output.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're running hot. We're running hot everywhere we go.
It's not going well. No, it's good. And it's sort of, in a weird way, like, I don't know. Do you think this about things sometimes? Like you wish it would be spontaneous.
Probably not. Go ahead. Tell me. What do you know?
You wish it would be spontaneous. Like, I'll just know what we should. We'll just know what's right to do. And that's nice and stuff. And sometimes that happens. But for me, having a little bit of a formula is very helpful.
Yes.
So when I hear 20% or 1/5, you're welcome, math teachers. I learned a little bit. I think, okay, that's doable. It means everyone in our little family is having to let some things go that we were maybe invested in or were maybe important to us, but they're at the bottom of that list.
Yes.
And so to me, that formula, and we also have written down all the different sort of areas of our life. And you can't cut out 1/5 time with family.
You can.
You can have more quality.
It should just may not have family when you're done.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's
there
been
are
really
some
good.
things, like even for our immediate family, our nuclear family, and
nuclear,
our extended family, and then our extended family. There are places that we've been able to make adjustments, and we've kind of been smart about some of that time anyway. We both come from very large families. We can't go to everything.
Right.
And so we've realized that. And we also know that, especially in our generation of the family, there's just not that expectation. So your cousins, my cousins, our family, and the family below us have no expectation for us to show up.
We know
to
we
everything.
can't make each other's
The other generations,
kids' birthday parties.
the other generations are much more sentimental, and I get that, and they know.
Yeah.
But the family size was smaller back in the day when they were going to everything. So now it's quite large.
Yeah.
So we have made some decisions about that. We've made some decisions on our little family, our personal family, in terms of the things that we go to, in terms of how much time we get at home, which was, really
not enough,
especially during
recovery
the holidays.
time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we've made some cuts in that. And we've even made some cuts, where our daughter's concerned. She gets an invitation to do something somewhere about every single day.
Yeah,
and I love it that she has, her friend circle is a great friend circle.
Yeah.
They're a great influence on each other, and all that kind of stuff. So they're not bad people. But she just needs some time at home, and she doesn't always believe that or think that, but we notice the difference when she's
when she gets some downtime.
So we have made some decisions about the invitation she gets, which one she's going to go to, which one she's not going to go to, what that's going to look like.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Kind of
and it's really one of those parental things that's like for her own well-being.
Yeah.
We know about how much she can handle without crashing.
Right.
And so that means sometimes we have to say no to people, which is really hard
or
for me.
Or limit the length of things. For example, I mean, she's the only grandchild on your side.
Yeah.
And your family happens to live in town.
Right.
So they love to see her, and which is really sweet and wonderful. But the idea of her spending the entire day out doing stuff when she's not been home at all, that's exhausting. So it's been difficult because we've had to limit. What if she just went 2 hours or 3 hours and did an outing versus a whole day thing?
And those parameters, I think, have really helped too.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not a no. It's just
right.
Kind of shoring it back into something that, is better and more manageable.
Yes.
That helps a lot.
And you're also getting the best of her instead of a depleted her. And then, then she does get some recovery time at home because the weekend is the kind of one window that she has to kind of really recover from a week that's pretty full.
Yeah.
And that's also the one window that most people have a chance to see her. So you really have to, as we say, we hate the word balance, but you really kind of have to balance that thing out.
Yeah, you do. And the same thing is, it's funny, we're talking about doing that for our daughter and making sure that that's best for her, that she has windows for downtime, windows to just be around, but yet we weren't protecting that time for ourselves enough.
Yes.
And it's not like we were out gambling. I mean, were you out gambling?
Not all the time. Yeah. I thought I was winning.
How'd it go? Did I did get some nice gifts this year.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But
by the way, the podcast is broke now, so
great.
I gambled all the podcast money away.
Was there any? Anyway, we were doing things that we believe are good, but even those things that are good or that you wish you could solve in the world, you can't do them all.
Right.
And so for us, so we've had to, in essence, take a real honest look and say, we need downtime as well. And the older I get, the more I need, which is pretty interesting.
Well, you have a phrase that I like.
Oh, what is it? Tell me.
Where you
should we make T-shirts?
Where you might have a different phrasing for it, but it's you have an idea or an inspiration for something, and you think, let's play that out to the end.
Well, yeah. So I got into this. It's funny. I've already done it twice today because I am my challenge is I'm so wonderful and positive.
Yeah.
That's it. No, I'm kidding.
That's without saying. I mean, go ahead and say it, but it's without saying.
I would love to be able to help everyone and fix everything and do these things. And sometimes that's not all good because part of it is you like to be the hero, if we're honest about it.
Right.
So there's some good self-esteem that comes from that. But for me, I will, in the moment, right, when someone mentions an idea, this happens to me a lot when I'm in meetings, whether it's like school, parent support group stuff or stuff for work and I'll hear an idea and no one is responding, right? Nobody's helping. And I'm thinking, good gracious, I can do that. I know I could do that. And here's the deal. And then, you raise your hand. So I did this on a particular project end of last year. I raised my hand. I was like, okay, there's nobody else. So yeah, I can take care of this. And I thought in my mind, oh, this won't be such a a big deal.
Right.
But what I didn't do was what we call now thinking it through to the end.
Yes.
So it's easy to say, oh, yes, I will help host this event for someone. That seems like no big deal. But what you've got to do in your mind before you make that decision, or for me, is think, okay, that's going to be pre-work. That's going to be finding somebody to bring the food. That's going to be cleaning up afterwards. That's going to be posting how great the party was on Facebook for your organization or whatever. So that has helped me to think through. And sometimes you just don't know how much work something's going to be till you get in there.
Especially in the first year or
you
something.
Get entangled. So I have 2 things from last year that I will not do again.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that it wasn't good what I did.
Yeah.
But for my skill set, those things were not a really good use of me.
Right.
And what I'm good at.
Well, there are 2, I think, really important things that you said there. One is the beginning of that, which is as you think about or consider appointments, or you consider events that you've been invited to, or you consider opportunities to serve or do jobs or whatever it is, asking yourself, and this takes a little self-discipline because you have to force yourself really to be quiet and to be honest, but asking yourself why you want to do that. And a lot of times that's multiple motives.
Yeah.
There's a need there. I know I can help.
I can help it.
It would be quicker for me to just do it than to find somebody else for them to do it.
Yeah.
If I don't, but then the other part of it is being honest with all of our motivations. Like you said,
why is it I want to do this?
Yeah, the idea of being the hero. I like stepping up and people know, oh, every time this is Anjanette.
Yeah.
She
She's
can
so
do anything.
reliable.
You're right.
Yeah.
She can do anything, and she's and this, that, and that. And so we do earn, especially in our personality types and our birth orders and everything else, we earn these little things that say part of our identity that we have, which is, oh, this is the reliable one.
Yeah.
This is the one that solves things. This is the all that kind of
stuff. It reminds me, what's so funny is I got this picture of, the little Boy Scout uniforms or Girl Scout uniforms, and you would earn the badges. So do we have any other, I'm sure some of our listeners struggle with this, any like type A badge earners?
Merit badge,
merit badges. Yeah. And it's like, oh, hardworking, trustworthy, loyal, and you get your little badge.
We get a little dopamine hit from being the person who is the problem solver, who is the rescuer, who is the, on and on and on. So, or there's the thing of guilt. Well, God, if I don't, this, that, and I really owe it to them. And, if I don't do this, then so-and-so is going to
Or how about this one? I struggle with this a lot.
Or who else could possibly do it if I don't do it? All that stuff.
Or we have so much.
Yes.
Our life is really good comparatively. And I need to do this because really the truth is I feel guilty.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and not all motivations are, they're not one dimensional.
No,
like a good character. Yeah. You can have good motivation, but shadowing behind it is a little bit of the hero complex,
But it's important to identify that. The whole thing about if not you, then who, which is a great slogan for being active and volunteerism and all that stuff. But the reality of it, on the bad side of that is, well,
someone
somebody else will do that. Or you may be interfering with, and that's the
that helps me too. Yeah. To know that someone else could.
There's somebody else that may need to step up, and the fact that you're taking this opportunity means they won't.
That's right.
Or there's another actual solution. You may be doing the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
But there's an actual solution out there for this problem. And the more you keep stepping in, the more you step in to solve this and be the Band-Aid, the longer you are pushing this from actually getting to the thing, which is maybe it's time to retire this project.
Exactly.
Maybe it's time for this to go away. Maybe it's time for somebody else to actually maybe someone needs to actually create a position to resolve
cover these,
and we're interfering with that being taken care of.
I think you're right. Another thing that's really helped me, and this makes us sound we're super aware and analyzing things all the time.
We are.
Well, you're a thinker. I'm a doer. You do stuff too. I don't mean it like that, but no, you're a thinker, but because we had hit a wall in our own life, now we're trying to be really careful.
Yes.
And really aware. So for me, I had a situation, and this probably frustrates some of you too. Maybe you're like this, but a lot of times what's hard for me is I can see how easy it would be for me to just fix that.
Yeah.
And especially if you're in like a reoccurring board meeting or something that goes on, you want to be like, good Lord, are they still talking about this? Like I could do this on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And sometimes I will just get frustrated and want it to be done.
Right.
And sometimes that's okay, but someone else needs to know. I had a project recently where I was needing to connect two people because they both needed to work together on something.
Yes.
Neither of them were doing it. It wasn't my responsibility. I'm not the president of this organization.
Right.
But the fact that we would get together and it still hadn't been done. So I thought I could do this and just,
Right.
And so, but I got the sense, I connected them via email. I tried once, I tried twice, and I did not try 3 times a lady because the sense that I got when I was trying to run it through this more aware place was that I was to connect them and step away. And if neither of them took the initiative to get that done, even though I could see that it would be great, to step away.
Yeah.
That was hard for me.
You can only do so much in that circumstance. And this is another filter that we begin to apply. You kind of touched on it in a way when you said, this is not the best use of me.
Yeah.
So one of the filters that we have applied in looking at our lives and looking at each of these departments is to say, what are the things that are routinely frustrating in this department, in this endeavor, in this experience? And almost 8 to 9 times out of 10, those things that are the most frustrating, the least life-giving, the thing that makes you the most fatigued, are actually things that you should remove.
You can let go.
And so we've seen that, you know, like with Dreamers and with Dreamers Live and with the podcast and on, 90% of that stuff is stuff that we love.
Yeah.
But there is this 10% that is very, very difficult. It's life-sucking.
Yeah.
And it's, even though it's only 10 or 20%, it's difficult enough that you start thinking, I don't know if I want to keep doing this.
It's a little thorn in your side. So instead of throwing out the whole project.
Yeah. So I think the idea of looking at this and saying, okay, this is not, these things should go away. And if you will look at your life and this kind of low 5 list of these expenditures in each department.
Right.
In a lot of cases, those are things you should be getting away from. Those are things you should be cutting.
Yeah,
and removing out of that scenario, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Just like in the way of an illustration, I mean, a good example is when we do our Dreamers live events. One of the things for me is the amount of stuff. Like sometimes we're here at the Pioneer Dream Loft, and that's a little bit easier. But when we go off on site, because we like to take people to cool spots, and there's just like the amount of stuff I'm bringing, and like merchandise and papers and all of these, and treats and cookies, and some of that I like to do, but I thought to myself, out of the whole experience that people have there, how important is that? Not very to most people.
Yeah.
It's little touches that I like to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if that is, you know, preventing people, if that's not important to the overall experience, then let that part go.
And how much of that is the energy expenditure that you have at the end of the night when you're exhausted.
And you're packing up 4 crates
so
when it could be 1 crate.
Yeah, like as we said, you know, instead of being able to connect with people, now we're having to schlep more stuff.
Yeah,
And
so don't bring all the stuff.
so it's what we call the maximum effort, minimum return
Our
concept.
specialty.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the other thing that you kind of touched on, which is so true, and I'm seeing this more and more, you know, we've both been part of groups and boards and efforts and stuff like that. And so, you know, I have a couple of boards that I'm a part of, and I've loved that. They've all been really interesting and educational. But there are a handful of boards that I have been a part of where they're dealing with reoccurring problems.
Yeah.
They're dealing with reoccurring issues. And they have, in a couple of cases, not to be braggadocious, but in a lot of ways, they've been intentional about asking me to be a part of that board because they think I could help with some of those issues.
Yeah, yeah.
And
you
so
are
here
good
we
at that
go,
type of
and
thing.
we do the board thing,
Sure.
and then the issues come up, and then you bring
what they brought you on to help
you bring
with.
You bring the help, or at least the idea of a solution, or the conversation of a solution.
We see this with clients too.
And everybody thinks, oh, this is great, and then nobody does
anything.
they don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
And now I'm 3 board meetings in. We're having the same conversation,
and time is ticking.
and we're
man.
having the same thing. And I realized,
Yep.
you like the idea of coming up with a solution, but no one's implementing it. No one's doing this.
And those are the things you have to
And again,
politely
so then you get to a
leave.
place where this is not just a waste of my time. This is a waste of my energy.
Yes.
This is a waste
Of my emotional
I'm going
energy.
to be here next year.
Yeah.
We're going to have this meeting. This issue is going to come up. No one will have done anything about it. And so, so for our clients, we go through that stuff.
Sure.
They want consulting, or they want marketing, or they want whatever. And so we come in from the outside We're not in it, so we can see we can see more clearly a lot of times.
Sure.
Oh, these are the things you're battling. Here are 10 things you could do that would really help in resolving this.
Yeah.
And they love it. And they like fireworks, and there's a cocktail party and solution and all that kind of stuff. And then you see them 2 months more, and like, so how's that going? What are you doing? Well, we just haven't gotten around to implementing this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And they're not going to.
No, and
it was a giant waste of time and money for
Right.
them. And then we feel like a little eaten up because we care about what they're doing.
Yeah. You just wish that they would do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make people bad. I mean, being, like we say all the time,
right.
being human is hard. Other things come up. And so it's not that you're leaving in judgment like, well, y'all just can't get your crap together, so I'm out.
Yeah.
It's more that you get the sense, I'm not able to make an inroads here.
Right.
My time and my spirit and who I am, I feel like is of value. So I have to step away.
It's
and
where we talk about the ET light, little ET heart light that goes on and on. And so, for us, we choose when we have opportunities or potential projects that come up or whatever, we try to get quiet and, as you would say, play that to the end. But when you're trying to get a sense of, is this going to be a good match? Mm-hmm. Is this relationship, professional, otherwise, going to be a good connection? Or can I see any writing on the wall here in advance?
Yeah.
And usually the ET light inside of you will help you see, oh, these people are sweet, but this isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
These people are sweet, but you're going to be frustrated here.
Yeah.
And, or these people are sweet, but the scratch you're trying to itch is this other motivation. Mm-hmm. So it is about kind of getting quiet. It is about being honest with yourself. It is about, and it will prevent you from spending things with somebody that is essentially a dead end. Stuff that should be going to somebody else or something else that really would be life-giving.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And since we're talking about this, you and I have talked about this.
Is this about me? Are you leaving?
It is.
Wow.
Been wanting to tell
this
you.
Is so awkward.
Well, I don't know. The new podcast setup's not working out for me.
I've never been broken up on a podcast before.
I can see you. No, but I got to go to this really cool, it was sort of like a yoga / meditation / it was just really just a chill time for some different people in our community that it was a morning.
Nap on a yoga mat.
Yeah, it was like an extended, for those of you who've done some yoga, and I'm terrible at it. So, but the Savasana, the resty time, everyone's there for the nap anyway.
I'll be doing corpse pose for the afternoon.
But considering we're really trying to open things up and be aware, I was like, this sounds nice. I will kind of do this for myself. So I went and we did that. But anyway, they had asked if there was like a word or something you wanted to maybe focus on. And a lot of times for me, like I like words and goals. Yes. And so, normally I'd come in and be like, oh yeah, I got 3, which is the exact opposite point. But I was, and I got this sense of what we're needing in our life, and what I'm needing in my soul is space.
Yeah.
And it was so cool because that word like immediately popped in, and I was like, I knew exactly and also this variation of it, which I love, is spaciousness. Yeah. Like it just, but that's the point is, I looked up the definition of space. It talked about having freedom and an expanse. Yes. And then this was my favorite part. It said, otherwise unoccupied time.
Yeah.
And I was like, space.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That's it. Like it makes me get excited about life, just to have some white space. Like we know in the principles of design, when we used to design billboards, we've done everything. But people would be like, we want a billboard and we want it to say, come to the best place ever. And we have this, and this, and this. And we're like, okay, so here's what goes on a billboard our place is awesome because people are driving. But the point is the message is clear, and the message is seen because of the white space around the simplicity. And so anyway, so that's like my new thing right now, honestly.
It's so interesting. You bought a book from me, which I've loved. By Rick Rubin. I think it's called The Creative Act. And listeners, if you don't have it, you should go get it. The chapters are 2 or 3 pages long.
Can I borrow it from you?
You don't. No, you don't. You don't have to read it all at one time. Like right now, I'm in like 2 or 3 different books, so I'm dipping in and out of this. And because the chapters are the length they are, it's really fantastic because I can read this in a short window once I get home from work or before dinner or something like that. I could read 2 or 3 pages, and then it will revive your soul just reading this stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, it's super
cool. I'm going to steal it from you.
And, you can look up who Rick Rubin is, but he's essentially everywhere all the time, and he's done a lot of amazing
famous
stuff.
Music producer, etc.
And he doesn't look like the person who should have done everything he's done, but it was good. But anyway, he was, in the chapter that I was just reading, referencing this very thing you're talking about. He was talking about inspiration.
Cool.
Which even gets into, in some level, from a mysticism way or a spiritual way of saying that, translated, inspiration is the breath of God.
Yeah, that's
breathing
right. To inspire.
Right. And his point was you can do that only if there is room to receive the breath.
Oh, that's awesome.
If everything is occupied, if everything is full, if everything is there's no room, if your ears are always full of noise or sound or whatever, if your mind is always full of thoughts or whatever, if your clock is always full of this, and this, if there's no room, even to breathe in something like inspiration, you have to exhale.
Yeah.
And so it's an exhaling. Now there is room to breathe in.
Yeah. And
now
there's
room
space
to take in. So this idea of getting quiet, this idea of space as spaciousness, well, I mean, that's important. That's what when Evangeline was born, and we really tried in this, it's been more and more difficult in the last couple of years because he's gotten older, but we were really careful to not overprogram her.
Yes.
She had one activity, one extra activity.
The American way is put your kids in soccer, put your kids in nine instruments, science club.
Boredom is the birthplace of creativity.
Exactly.
Boredom is the birthplace of inspiration. Sitting down, laying on your bed, staring at the ceiling, looking at the grass,
not having
looking at the
anything
back of your hand, looking up at the clouds, and bored enough that you kind of walk by a piano, and then at some point you kind of throw yourself on a piano bench and you lounge on it, and your face hits the keys, and it makes a sound, and you think, okay, and then you're just bored enough that you start plunking keys, and the next thing you know, there's something that kind of sounds like a melody, and then you're just, next thing you know, you're making something, you're laying on the bed and you're thinking about something, and then your mind goes to an idea or to a process, or a voice speaks inside of you, and a little ET light shines up, and you think, oh cool. Inspiration. But it happens the most when there's space.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's so important. And that's what we would say to our daughter if she, and she never really said this very much but if she did occasionally say, I'm bored. And we would say, if you're bored, you're not being creative. Yeah. But we force space on her, and we do it to this day. And what's funny is we're really restrictive about phone and technology. And so for her, we all fill those little spaces with this phone, with this, technology and information that comes in. So when that is not a factor, we go toward these other things that really feed the soul. And but man, we have got to have that. Yes. I mean, we have to have that to be who we are. And for me, I was creating a lot of the to-do lists, and then my to-do list had to-do lists. I would have to-do lists at home, like seriously. Yeah. I mean, because you're used to that pace. You're just like, let's do this, because you feel like you're trying to do that to survive. But when you're able to pull back and you do breathe and you do fill that space, it's pretty awesome. Like, I'm kind of liking life right now.
Well, we've talked about it, but it's so true. I think maybe the biggest offender of space right now for us is the phone. And you and I made a decision a month or two ago that we were going to take social media off of our phones. We use social media a great deal to promote things, and
including this amazing podcast.
Well, please, and also to stay connected with some family.
Yeah, I like that part of it. Mm-hmm.
But it became a default. There was a quiet moment. You're sitting in the car. You're waiting in the supermarket line. You're doing whatever you're doing. And
scroll,
then out comes
check
the phone.
In.
And then you're checking in and all that kind of stuff. And so removing the socials from our phones has really helped in the space. But I still find it, like in the morning, I think I want to check in. I might do some meditation. I might do some reading. I might pray. I might do whatever I do in the morning with coffee.
What do you do in the morning?
I can't tell you. And then, but then at the end of it, you feel compelled, I should check in on the news just so I know what's going on.
Yeah, it's like a habit,
And that kind of stuff. And then there's something in me that just feels like when I go to that, it feels so offensive in terms of everything else I've just
It's so right.
experienced.
It gives me a certain feeling.
Yeah,
and
I'm
I
thinking,
didn't know
why am I, this is the opposite of everything I've just done.
Why am I doing this?
And I don't really need this right now. I know the news. I know what's happening. I know who's doing what and saying what. That's not going to be a surprise.
We get like an electronic newspaper. We get, some alerts and different things. But
so it feels so the antithesis of everything else I'm doing. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to be more aware of that. I think the phone right now is the biggest counterbalance to space. And there's nothing wrong with phones. Phones are great. They're Switzerland. They're just neutral.
Yeah, right.
It's how we choose to use them
Yeah.
that's becoming an issue.
But it's so hard to extricate ourselves from that. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. One thing I was thinking about, I guess sort of adversely, is we were talking about how our new 20% rule, that we're doing cutbacks, time management cutbacks. So, but you and I have similar personalities in that we're both like kind of go-getters and doers, and we'd be the workaholics. We're kind of both wired that way. But there are some people, I'm sure, that are listening today that we know that struggle the other way.
Yes.
And that is too much relaxation,
too
much TV, too much
Right.
space, too
much
much
couch
of
time.
those, too much isolation. And I was just thinking, I would love to encourage other people who struggle differently to maybe look at that and say,
Right.
I need to cut how much Netflix I'm watching by 20%. Well, it's not about Netflix.
Exactly.
Or how much alone time I feel like I need.
Right.
Maybe the 20% cut can go the other way for some people in that
Oh,
they need to be around people more and
Well, the good thing about
be more productive.
the budget conversation is that you cut things that are negative, as you said.
Oh, right.
Too much Netflix, too
For
much
us,
couch
it was
time,
too much,
too
yeah.
much work, too much this, that, or that, too many projects at one
much
time,
stuff.
all that kind of stuff. With the idea being that the 80% that you do, that 80% are things that are really worth the investment,
Okay,
are really
right.
life-giving. So that 80% of saying, okay, trade this out. I'm not going to do 20% of Netflix. I'm going to reallocate that energy to being with people more.
There you go.
I'm
Yeah.
going to reallocate that time and that energy to going to these events or doing this hobby or
being
doing
active
that thing,
in this
being
way.
active and all that kind of stuff. And that part is really, really important in that.
Yeah,
You know,
I like
I happen, like I said, I'm reading multiple books at one time.
I do that too. We're like ADHD book readers.
Well, I think
With
I feel,
different kinds of
I feel
books.
compelled. Like every book you start seems amazing, so it's like, oh yeah. So you hear about a book, you're like, oh, I should read that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but these two books balance well to each other, and,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm reading one in the morning and one in the evening, for a little bit. And
Makes us sound so intellectual.
Well, and we are.
We're reading. We didn't read one word in November and December, which is why we're reading now.
But this book, I think we probably have spoken about or talked about before, but it's called 4,000 Weeks. I think it's Oliver Berkman or something like that. You can find it if you just
I got you that one too.
Yes, if you just go on the Amazons and type in 4,000 Weeks. And so it's a phenomenal book. But one of the things that he talks about in this book, which is kind of indicative of our scenario, is this kind of essentially rule of threes, that you can really focus on kind of three things, three projects at a given time.
That's really helpful.
And that there is this issue where we kind of avoid finishing one thing before we jump into the next thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that, which he gets into in the book, but it's so true. And so as part of this January thing, I've made a list of the things that I've started and have not finished. It's okay to quit something.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, oh, this isn't what I thought, or this isn't life-giving, or this isn't worth my time. Like you were reading another book the other day, and you said, I can't turn a corner on this book. And I said, it's okay to quit a book.
Yeah. Well, and a friend had given it to me, so I felt bad. but I was like, this doesn't speak to me the
once
same
you
way.
give them time and you hope to turn the corner on it, but your days in your life are precious, and so if something is not working, we've tested a couple of TV shows that we think might be interested, and you get an episode in and you think it's not that.
Yeah.
I don't feel compelled to finish the series just because I started episode one.
It's too dark or it doesn't relate.
And it's the same thing
Yeah.
with books, and so I've had to go back through and look at the projects I'm doing at the house, the projects we're doing with Dreamers, the creative concepts we're coming up with, all these different ideas, and say, okay, what's unfinished? Okay, of the things that are unfinished, which things really have glow on them? Which things are things that the ET light fires up on when
really
I think about them
speak
and
to
see
me.
them and I do them?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have to know how they're going to play out, but they do. And so, and are there any things that I'm involved in that just don't have that glow, and it's the same thing. And in this whole thing, he talks about this list, he talks about the story, and then I thought this was really, really interesting. He said, he talked about priorities we have in our lives, and he relates this story that's kind of attributed to Warren Buffett. And even as he says, he's not sure it's really true, but the principle's there. He says Warren Buffett's getting ready to get on his plane, and his private pilot is there, and his pilot says, how do you know what to focus on? How do you know where to put your energies in this, that, and the other? And he says, well, apparently or supposedly, Warren Buffett says, make a list of the top 25 things in your life, the things you care about the absolute most. And then he said, okay, now take the first 5 things. And you're supposed to weight the list in order of one.
Like order of importance.
Yeah. So you make this list, order of importance, top 25 things in your life.
So your top one would be me, obviously.
Absolutely,
well,
please.
Right.
And so you make this list, and he says, okay, now take the top 5 things and build your life around those 5 things. And give that your energy, most of your energy. And he says, now then this other 20%, he said... Or
20 items.
20 items, yeah. This other 20 items, he said, you would think that would be like, and then everything else can, whatever
filter
time
in.
you have left, do this other 20. He said, no. He said, this other 20 things, get rid of them completely.
Whoa.
Because these are the things that are going to compete for the top 5 things.
Compete
these are the
with
things
them.
that you're going to have enough interest in and enough ability in,
for it to
and
be a
enough
rabbit trail.
want in, that
Yes.
they will actually sneak in and you're like, I could paint this, I could take on this hobby, I could take this cooking class, I could do this, this, and this. And all of a sudden those things are taken away from the things that are supposedly, reportedly, the most important things in your life that you want to do and accomplish and whatever. And so that's where we are on so many of these things. I think about projects of the house that I want done.
Sure.
And I know
your never-ending list.
I could do them.
Yeah.
But at what cost?
Yeah.
I could take this room apart and I could refinish this and this and this, but at what cost?
Yeah.
At the cost of doing the 5 things that are really, if I'm honest, the most important to me.
Yeah.
And then this thing, probably because the 5 things are difficult to do.
Yeah.
And they're hard to do and they require a lot of emotional energy. Sometimes you can go to one of the things on the 20 list and pick those things as a distraction. It's like when we were at OU.
A positive distraction.
Yeah, we were at the University of Oklahoma and you go to a full day of classes and you have this homework and you get back to your dorm room to do the homework and that's the last thing you want to do.
So you clean your room. Like
so
you're
you
desperate.
Clean your room.
You're desperate
You
enough.
go back and you start reorganizing because
I'm going to spit shine my dorm.
Yeah, I don't know. I just need to get my desk organized. Yeah. And so that thing becomes the procrastination, becomes the distraction from the thing that is the higher priority.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what happens with the list of 20.
Yeah.
In the moment, they seem
exciting.
attractive.
Sure.
In the moment, they seem sexy because they're not the thing you're being bogged
struggling
down
through.
with right now.
Yeah.
And so it's stuff I can do.
Yeah.
But it's not the best use of me.
But
it's not the best use of my time. And it's going to stop me from doing the 5 things.
That makes sense. Like, say the number one thing on someone's list is that they have a good relationship with their children.
Right.
Okay. So if that's the number one thing on your list, but you've got this 6 through 20, there's always going to be something you can pull from instead of sitting down and hanging with your kids or having those tough conversations.
The most important thing to do is to be with your child. Now, your child's in a difficult spot right now because of their age and conflict.
Because they're a 13-year-old girl.
And so there's a lot to that.
Yeah.
And so in the meanwhile, as something you think is a distraction or whatever, you decide to destroy the den and redo it.
Yeah.
Well, now you got to do the drywall on the den. Now you've got to
see that thing all the way through.
Now you got to get this done so we can just get back into the room. Well, now you're a month and a half in and you've spent 0 time
all your weekends
with your kid.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's so tough. I mean, because
that's not against hobbies. That's not against things.
No.
But,
that may be part of maybe number 5 on your list is just healthy, inner self life or something like that. And so hobbies, we're not. But that, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, and I'm grateful that I feel like some of these things have come toward us. What I'm also laughing about is you guys need to check in on us because it's still January, right? Like these are in essence sort of New Year's resolutions.
Made it 3 days.
And if we start backsliding, if you see us scheduling too many events, be like, hey, how's that going?
Yeah.
I mean, like we have set up some things and we might suggest this to you guys too. So we're implementing honestly, like a family meeting, like at the beginning of every month. And that's where we're going to look at things.
As your top 5 list, what's going
and
on
you and
for
I
you.
have what we're going to call, we just are making this stuff up right now, but it's true. A systems check. How's it going saying no?
Right.
How's it going with the 20%? What are you
cutting this month? Are there any things that you've picked up in the last week or couple weeks that you probably shouldn't have?
Yeah, and it will take some checking in with one another. Yeah. It'll take some accountability.
There's muscle memory. I mean, if you don't default to the happily ever after. You have to make those decisions on the way. And so when we've been engaged in a certain level of behavior for a long time, whether it's guilt living or hero living or whatever else, then you have to go back and readjust. And
you need a friend. We need relationships, and we need each other. You need somebody you can say, hey, here's what I'm really going to work on. And
right. So it's what we
just
call.
Check in with me on this.
That's what we call give 20%. No, you don't need to give 100%. Give 20%.
Give 20 away. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Well, friends, this has been such a fun conversation for us, and I hope for you too.
And I kind of like the new setup. I mean, I can see you.
I know.
I feel like we were joking
gaze
more.
each other's eyes. It was so much more lively than before.
Yeah,
and I think the whole quality of inspirational talk that we gave was just way up here.
It was great. I think it's because we're naked.
For those you can't see, I'm holding my hand really high right now.
We're for reals not naked in here,
anymore,
I promise.
Not anymore. We will be back soon with another podcast. We're always doing Dreamers Live events, so you can watch us on the Facebooks if you're of the social persuasion. And there's a Dreamers Live, I think it's just Dreamers on Facebook. You'll see us.
Okay.
You'll know what it is.
You'll find us,
Search Dreamers or Dreamers Live on the Facebooks and you'll find us.
And coming up, we've got, I'm really excited. We're going to do a Dreamers Live experience with 2 different organizations that were interested in what we did.
Yes.
And so we are going to go to them and be part of their meeting and get to know them and facilitate a little bit of fun conversation. And we would love to do that with your group or your business. We've done this with corporations before. Let us come and help you talk with people more and get to know them better.
So wherever you are enjoying, whatever platform you're enjoying this podcast on, there is a way to message us. Mm-hmm. And if you'll do that and get in contact with us, we'd love to come and hang out with you and come to your group or do a Dreamers Live. We're doing a Dreamers Live event soon in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. We will travel.
A couple here in Oklahoma.
Give us a reason to travel, friends.
Yes, come see us. And so we're super excited about that. So message us. And then please, as we talked about before, take this podcast, go to the little share button, copy the link, and send it to a couple of friends you think, they would really love this. Or I want to show everybody just how stupid these people are. And you can do that that way too. So yeah. Until now and then, peace to all of you. Thank you for being fellow dreamers, and we will see you soon.
Talk to you soon.